Hello, everybody. Welcome to Live from the Tower, your one-stop shop for all things Destiny, and today we are talking about Heresy. Now, I've had a couple days with the new season, not a full week like most people. That's unfortunately because the PlayStation Network was down for 2 days. Now, I can't fault Bungie for that, but Sony really needs to step their game up because that dug into my weekend playing time, which is what I was going to use to further evaluate what we have so far. I do have a list of bullet points I want to get to. If you do follow me over on TikTok, I've already discussed these the other day. Now it's time to put all the thoughts to paper, so to speak. So right off the bat, Heresy has a very strong intro cutscene. The mission itself is fun, and it's typical of what you expect from a seasonal opener of a mission, but the intro cutscene that sort of breaks that mission up really does set stakes. Now, initially, I wasn't the biggest fan of it because of the cutscene that follows. So this is going to be full spoiler territory. If you have not played Heresy yet, I recommend you go and play Heresy and then come back and watch this video. Or if you're on Spotify or Apple, come listen to this episode. So in the middle of the mission, once you defeat the Ogre in the EDZ and you head to the Dreadnought, which it puts you right at the same spot where you land on the Dreadnought in Destiny 1, which is really nice. Once you do all of that, you get a cutscene of Eris and Drifter fighting. I believe they're around the Court of Oryx, I could be mistaken. But then the big boss for the season shows up, the big Subjugator. Eris has a little duel with them until the Subjugator kind of grabs her and holds her in the air. Eris calls her a vile creature and pops one round of trust off into her helmet. And then the Subjugator just skewers Eris Morn and drags her across the ground, and they leap off the edge of the platform. I will say, Drifter's VA, rent must be due, because this man put his whole body into this cutscene, and it's really nice. This is the part I love, because it raises the stakes, which have not been there since arguably the final shape, but they definitely didn't feel like they were there in Season of Echoes or in episode Revenant. They just didn't feel like there was something to lose or something to fight for. What I didn't like was the cutscene that plays after the fact. Eris wakes up in what we can assume is a throne world, and she removes her base wrap, so we see her 3 acolyte eyes for the first time, full on display, and she has this maniacal laughter moment. I didn't like this initially, because to me that felt like, oh, Bungie didn't actually kill Eris Morn. The reason it bothered me is because we haven't seen Bungie kill off a true major character since Forsaken. They killed Amanda Holiday off in Defiance, I believe, the episode that launched with Lightfall. That didn't really have any weight or gravitas, but that's because of how Lightfall's narrative was structured and how that season fell flat. They've also killed off Rohan in Lightfall, which nobody cared about because nobody knew Rohan. We knew him for 2 missions, 3 missions, and then he's gone, and we're supposed to feel this big emotional weight. It just didn't play out the way they had intended. So by quote-unquote killing Eris Morn, it raises the stakes. It makes us feel the weight of what's happening, much more so than anything Maya Sundaresh, and much more than anything Fikrul was doing. So this added weight and gravitas to the whole scenario, which I loved. After a couple days of sitting on it and ruminating on everything, I don't hate it as much as I did initially, because I realized that Bungie could, in fact, still kill Eris Morn off. She has no ghost, so they could set it up where no matter what we do in this season, she's gone. And I think that would be good for the game. Not because I don't love Eris, but because we need to lose. That was one thing that Red War did really well and Forsaken did really well. And I think it's a line of dialogue that always sticks with me from Destiny 2 Vanilla. And that's when Gaul, right before he kicks us off the platform, says to us, "You have merely forgotten the fear of death." I think that's something narratively that Bungie needs to remember. They're not killing off characters. They're not making things emotionally investing for us. But upon further thought process, I don't hate it as much as I did. I do think the intro's strong overall. So one thing I will say is I'm unsure on whose throne world she's in, because for those who've played Season of the Witch, Eris Morn ascended to the Hive hierarchy. She became the Hive god of revenge, I think. But at the end of that season, she relinquished her power. And in doing so, that should in turn relinquish her throne world that would have been created. So I don't know if Bungie's going to retcon that and say it's Eris's throne world. Some people speculated Xivu Arath's throne world. So it'll be interesting to see how the weeks go. Now, story-wise, gameplay-wise, we are back to time gating. We are back to weekly installments. The problem is, the way the final quest step this week is worded, it doesn't register that this is you have to go and wait and just kind of hang out and do Nether. It makes it seem like you need to do more things, when in reality, once you hit step 11, that's it for the week. At least as far as I can tell, and as far as everything I've seen on Reddit and the internet, you hit step 11, you get the Tome of Want, and now it's time to just do your challenges, do your triumphs, do the dungeon if you want, which we will not be talking about because I haven't played the dungeon yet. I still haven't played Vesper's Host, but that's where we are story-wise. Now let's talk about the actual gameplay that we're going to be doing for the rest of the season. So we have this new activity called Nether, and much like the initial cutscene, upon day one, I was not a fan of it. And this is because when you do the seasonal quest, Bungie almost suggests and hints that you need to play Nether in the solo explore mode. If you're playing solo, if you're playing a fire team, you can go into explore and do whatever you want. That put me off to the game mode. And it's because Nether is supposed to be challenging and it's supposed to be hard. When you play it solo, because there's no health regen, because there's these different modifiers, it is a challenging activity. I got to the second set of tasks to do, and I wiped. I then went into the match-made version of Nether, and I had a much better time. It was much more enjoyable. Having fire team members there, I got through it easily, and the quest progressed. Now, my clanmate did say to me, you're in control of the buttons you press, which is 100% true. But the reason why I felt like I had to go into Nether solo is because when I was playing episode 2 Revenant and I was doing the exotic mission for Slayer's Fang, I didn't want to replay the exotic mission again. I used Fireteam Finder and I joined somebody's fire team and I went through it, but I didn't get quest progression for it because it was a different version of the exotic mission than what I needed to do for the quest. So when you open the director and the quest step says to go and do Nether, and the green Go Here icon that Bungie loves to use in the directory is over the solo explore mode, as a player who has had experiences like this in the past, that registers in my mind, you need to do it in explore mode. Rather than saying in the quest step, do it in match made or do it in solo. Also, to be fair, in the flavor text of the quest, it does say failure expected. So again, this is supposed to be challenging. It's supposed to be tough. I will say I'm glad I gave the whole episode another chance. I went back the next day after launch. My clanmate said to me, hey, we're going to do an expert mode Nether. Throw on your gear. Let's go inside. Let's go have some fun. So I redid my Geomag build from, funnily enough, Season of the Witch. We jumped in and it was a blast. I had never done expert mode. I'd only done one Nether. We went in, they showed me all the secrets they found, and I realized that Arc is absolutely busted this season, and as a Chaos Reach main, this made me so much happier. I did, however, had to tweak my build. I swapped out Cold Heart for the new exotic Lodestar, and I gotta say, Lodestar, I initially wasn't that excited to use. If you saw any of my shorts or TikToks, you knew that I was a bit tepid on it. Lodestar is an absolute blast to use in PvE, especially if you're building around the new Warlock aspect that gives you the shock turret and you're running something like Geomag. It just makes a ton of ionic traces. The other thing that I really enjoyed is there's just tons and tons of loot. I've gotten a shiny roll, I've gotten a couple of depths. We were in there for about an hour and I had so much loot, my bags were full and my postmaster was starting to get full. So if you love the chase of guns, because remember, these guns aren't craftable, this is the season for you. Now let's talk about what Nether is as a whole. Nether is this hybrid activity. It's a cross between the coil and deep dives. So you land into the Dreadnought and you'll land randomly upon the 3 sections that are available. And what you'll have to do is you'll have to go around and do different mini challenges. Sometimes it involves taking down a boss. Sometimes it involves standing on plates and destroying the weapons from the Dreadnought, like Destiny 1's mission. Eventually, you do 3 of these little challenges, and then you fight a big boss. There's a big Tormentor that looks like Nezarec. There's a big Ogre. There is a Taken Chimera. At each boss you defeat, you get a boon, and this is where Season of the Deep comes in. If you remember deep dives, when you finished a wave, you went to the door and there were 2 boons you could pick from. This is set up similarly. When you beat a major boss, you get your choice of 3 boons, 2 major or a corrupted. Think of corrupted like the traits from the Outer Worlds. There is a positive side of it and a negative side of it. So for example, you could increase your damage dealt, but you also increase the damage taken. So it's a risk and reward system. When you beat minor bosses throughout the whole activity, you'll also get these minor boons. And there's little things from, you get extra grenade damage, you get a solar wave upon sliding, and you can stack them, I believe, up to 10 times. I don't know how much you can stack major boons, but minor boons you can stack up to 10 times. And the whole point of the activity is the longer you're in it, the better you get at the activity because you have all these buffs stored up on your character. Now, there is a seasonal vendor, and the way you go about getting your rewards, it's essentially a focusing table like previous seasons. It's called the Tablet of Want, and what you do is you slot in what piece of gear you want. So say you wanted seasonal weapons. You slot that in. You then slot what specific season of weapon you want to chase, very similar to Onslaught. Currently, I'm chasing the machine gun because it works really well with the Geomag build that I've spec'd into. And then you slot in your Essence of Desire, you go into the activity, it charges up, and then you get your reward. If I'm going to be honest, after giving this season, or this episode, a couple days after launch to really play and sink my teeth in, I can honestly say that I'm excited for what's to come. Hopefully the narrative keeps on building these stakes and it doesn't dribble out, but the feeling that I have playing Nether and playing in the season itself and doing challenges, the want and desire I have to do all of these things is very reminiscent of Season of Arrivals and Witch Queen. Season of Arrivals was the first season where I actively just wanted to play. There was something about the activity, there was something about the guns, there was something about the lore. It just kept me hooked. And it was the first season where I got my season rank up to 200. This is giving me that same feeling. When Apollo gets its teaser, I could be just as hype as I was for Beyond Light. I could be more hype. That's all in the future. But in the here and now, I go to work, I want to come home and play Destiny. When it's the weekend, I want to sit in front of my computer and play Destiny. I had to pull myself away from playing Destiny to record this podcast because I just wanted to keep playing it. And I haven't even gotten to do the dungeon yet. So this is a really good thing, especially when what we've gotten earlier in the year has not been. We've had 2 episodes where the main mechanic is replay the exotic mission multiple times to progress your story. I know some people don't like that time gating's back, and I understand that. I've always been a proponent of drop everything at once, but that's more so when it comes to expansions. I would have loved all these episodes to come out with Final Shape. You do the Final Shape, you do the raid, and it's either go right into Echoes or you spaced it out. Obviously, neither of those things happened, so here we are. I don't mind the time gating because the activity's so fun. And that was what Arrivals did really well. The time gating didn't matter because the loot chase was good. And that's something we haven't had. So in closing, if you've taken a break from Destiny and you're not really sure whether or not to get back in or not, I think episode Heresy is a great way for you to get back in. You don't necessarily need to play Revenant and Echoes to understand what's going on in Heresy. If you beat the Final Shape, you understand that these 3 things left the Traveler. You can kind of piece things together, and you can always go back and read lore and watch lore videos. But if you've missed that itch of just chasing loot, especially when we have 3 tiers of loot, because that's the other aspect to all of this. In the past 2 episodes, we've just had the seasonal weapons and the reprised weapons. That's it. Heresy has dropped normal versions of the nether weapons or the seasonal weapons, adept versions of the nether weapons or the seasonal weapons, and shiny versions which have multiple perks a la Onslaught weapons from Into the Light. You can also get a shiny adept weapon. Adept weapons have a different color scheme, and the shiny weapons have 2 perks in all the columns, and it's got 2 origin traits. The seasonal one and the Taken King one, or the King's Fall one, runneth over. So there's more loot in this season in my opinion. And on top of that, I'm sorry, we also have Season of Arrivals weapons that have been reissued, so to speak, and we have the whole set of dungeon weapons. There is more loot in this whole season than in either Revenant or Echoes. Not to mention, we have 3 exotics. There's the dungeon exotic, there's the season pass exotic, and we know there's going to be another exotic because they showed it off in their live stream. This is quintessential Destiny. This is why we play Destiny. This is why we love Destiny. And it feels like they're headed back to peak Destiny. But like I said previously, I set no expectations, but I'm always hopeful for what's to come. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, fly safe, Guardians.